This is the Sergio Rodriguez Show.
Welcome, everybody, to the Sergio Rodriguez Show, a show unlike any other. Joining us today is a childhood friend of mine to discuss the political scene in New Jersey and the election, the presidential election next month. The Chief of Staff of Essex County, New Jersey, Mr. Phil Alagia. Phil, how are you?
Hey, Serge, how are you? I can't believe, who would have thought that there'd actually be a Sergio Rodriguez show? But I'm so honored to be on it. And I hope, in addition to some politics, we can debate which one of our teams is worse, the Cowboys or the Vikings. And I clearly believe that the Vikings are in better shape than the Cowboys right now.
All right, well, we'll discuss that. I'll give you a couple of minutes at the end here. Phil, let's start really close to home. How is the COVID situation in terms of the state of New Jersey? Obviously, New Jersey was hard hit early. Looking back at it now, I thought that although there were a lot of restrictions, we handled it pretty well. You guys did a good job. But where's the state now?
Well, actually, right now, unfortunately, we're seeing a bit of an uptick in the numbers in the state. I believe that the last few days, the numbers have gone up. Talking to the governor's office, a lot of it is centered in Ocean County and Monmouth County. Monmouth County, recently, they've had an uptick because of Monmouth University. And Ocean, the young students there have an uptick. And in Ocean County, unfortunately, it's Lakewood and on some of the Hasidic Jewish communities that have seen an uptick, and they're really trying to get a handle on it. One of the good things, though, is that the number of deaths and the hospitalizations hasn't risen as sharply or as proportional as they did in the spring, in March and April, when the state was really in dire needs. And I think a lot of that is because over these 6 or 7 months, I think the doctors and the hospitals have found significant ways to treat it, have found best practices and stuff like that. So, though the cases are going up, I hope we can keep the hospitalizations and the deaths down, because ultimately that's the true measure of how the virus is impacting us.
As we're heading now into the colder months of the year, right? So October now is upon us. The restaurants, the businesses that have been struggling since this started, now they can have limited seating. Where do you see this going? Because it's almost costing some of these businesses more money to actually open at a particular capacity than to act. Some of them are better off staying closed. Where do you guys see this stuff going?
Eventually you're right. You're going to have to find a percent of occupancy that's going to be worthwhile to the restaurants and the people inside, but also, there's also the responsibility to protect the health and well-being of our residents. There has been a significant difference between the transmission of COVID-19 outdoors to indoors. All the studies I've seen, all the numbers that we've seen is that outside, when the air is flowing and all that, the rate of transmission is significantly lower. I think, this summer, Serge, as softball and baseball started and football started and a lot of sports started, we really didn't see the uptick that a lot of people expected us to see. But now that you see more of the indoor places opening, now indoor restaurants. And I'm not a scientist. I don't know if that's a direct reason, but kids are going back to school. More businesses are opening all of a sudden. In the fall, we've seen an uptick in the numbers. So everything that I've read and I've seen in numbers, at the county and at the state level, it's a significant difference between outside and inside. So, but you're right. You also have to make sure that people are working. And, you think, we talked about this the other day, it's not only the restaurants, it's the people who provide the linen to the restaurants. It's the people who service the the washing machines and the dishwashers. It's the waiters and the way. I mean, it's a whole facet, that really get impacted by this. And we were even talking about laundromats. I used to wear a suit to work every day, and during COVID and everything, I've been to my cleaners. I used to be to my cleaners once a week. I've been to the cleaners 3 times, my laundromat 3 times since COVID started. So those guys are all dying. So it's just a tough, environment for businesses, and there's a fine line between the health and the welfare of, your citizens and residents, and the economic health of the state.
Let's get into this election, this presidential election. Obviously, you're a Democrat, and so I want you to sell to that voter that might be on the fence. Although I'll be honest with you, in this election, I don't think anyone's on the fence. But let's say for argument's sake that there is. Why Biden in this election? Is it you're going to vote against Trump or for Biden? Because it seems to me like they're voting against Trump. But educate me on that.
Oh, I absolutely think that that's one of the key factors here, is that there has never been anyone in my lifetime who I feel is less presidential than Donald Trump. What you saw in the debate, what the language that he speaks, and again, I think people want. That's also part of what makes him popular, is that people want something different. They don't want your typical politician, and that's why he appeals to some people, because people have lost faith in government. But if I'm an independent, I mean, the clearest thing I can say is right now, there's protests, there's unrest, there's people fighting, there's a sense of chaos in the country, and I think the choice is clear. Do you want a Donald Trump who's going to pour more gasoline on that fire, or do you want Joe Biden who's going to come in and try to make amends and make peace and work with everyone on both sides of the table? So if I'm on the fence, if I want someone who's going to try to calm the tone in the country and bring the level of respectability to where it should be. So I can't see, even though you may want to shake things up, but it's just going to pour more gasoline on the fire and make this work. It's on both sides.
My dad said to me the other day that he could never see himself voting for someone who's been a politician for over 40 years, and he still believes there's so many, like, these issues have been there forever, in his opinion. Like, he just feels like you've had 40 years to rectify a lot of the issues in our country, and now you want me to give you another 4? Like, what would you say to that?
I would say the issue of people rioting and protesting, and where you have 2 clear-cut signs, the far left and the far right, who are battling in the streets, that's a new problem. That's a Donald Trump created problem. And as much as he wants to say that he would stomp it out, he is promoting on the right a reaction and to take up arms and all that. So I would say I've never seen what's happening in the country now under Trump's leadership. At least it was calm and civility under 40-year politicians. So I can't see voting for a president who turned the country into what it is today after 3 short years. And I can't imagine where we would be, how separated and segregated and dysfunctional we would be with 4 more years of a Trump presidency.
What's the game plan for Biden to win this election? Because, I remember 4 years ago, or 3 years ago, or 3.5 years ago, right? I guess now, during the last election, they told me, well, the media told me that Trump had 0 shot at winning. And
Correct. I
I
don't think they said zero. I mean, I think that the polls and everything had Hillary at a 75% chance of winning. I think and again, hey, Serge, both you and I know that long shots win at the racetrack every once in a while.
No, I hear you.
Even though,
I hear you.
I mean, 25% chances come in once every 4 times. So
I get it. I get it. It just seems like it's too hard to, again, look at polls in this situation, because if you were to stop people on the street and ask them who they're voting for, I think they're almost afraid to say they're going to vote for Trump. So you don't even know.
That helps them in the polls. Absolutely. I think people are afraid. People are embarrassed. But if you're, why vote for a guy if you're embarrassed to say to someone privately on a private poll that I'm going to vote for him?
I hear you, but I think it's more. I don't think it's that they're embarrassed of their choice. I think it's they're afraid of the reaction that they receive from
an anonymous pollster. They're
correct.
Embarrassed. They're embarrassed. They can't believe that they're actually going to tell another human being that I'm so unintelligent that I'm going to vote for Donald Trump again.
Phil, you might be a bigger Democrat than my mom. So
listen, I have no problem if it's clearly. Listen, Chris Christie was a Republican, and I consider him a friend, and there's people who support. Listen, I would vote if it was for the good of the country. I would do the right thing and vote for a green candidate, a red candidate, a Republican candidate. I think that's the most important thing, right? I am a proud Democrat, but I'd have no problem if, in my heart, I believe the Republican would do better for the country. I would clearly vote for the Republican, but I don't think it's that way right now. And again, listen, whether you're voting against Trump or for Biden, I think Biden right now is the calm and the civility that the country needs.
What's the blueprint for him to win, to steal this election? I don't want to say steal, because that's such
you have to say steal.
I know. I listen. I stopped myself, right? A steal because he's stealing power, right? He's the incumbent. Trump is the incumbent. But I meant, what is the blueprint here? What's the best avenue to Biden winning this presidency?
4 years ago, Hillary Clinton won the popular vote by 3 million votes.
Correct.
So it's really weird. It all comes down to the electoral colleges. And again, I live in New Jersey, you live in New Jersey, and you very rarely see a Trump or a Biden sign, or commercials on local TV or ads on cable. And that's because they know that New Jersey is going to vote for Biden, and it's not a competitive state. So, people ask me for signs, and the campaign hasn't even sent Biden signs to New Jersey because it's already in the win columns. And my point is, it comes down to the toss-up states. It comes down to the 29 electoral college votes in Florida, to the 10 in Wisconsin, to the 18 in Ohio, and the way the election is set up, it comes down there. Now, for Democrats, what I'm seeing in polling lately is those states are all moving more and more towards Biden. Minnesota in the recent poll is 7 or 8 points towards Biden. Florida is 4 or 5 points for Biden. Again, stronger than where Hillary Clinton was 4 years ago. And I do think that I think Trump also benefited 4 years ago because a lot of people didn't like Hillary Clinton. So you may not have liked Trump, but they didn't like Clinton, so they either stayed home. I don't think people dislike Biden or hate Biden. I think they think that he may not be the best candidate. But again, in a close election, 2-3 points means a lot. And I do think when you see Senator John McCain's wife, when you see the Lincoln Project, which is all Republicans, spending all this money to get Republicans to vote against Trump, when you see a lot of the Republican Party, I would call the intellectuals in the party, against Trump, those 3, 4, 5%, that's a huge number that could swing the election. The way I see it right now, Serge, I think it's going to be a blowout for Biden. I think Biden is going to win the majority of these swing states, 4 or 5 points, but I think he's going to have, well over the amount of electoral college votes that he needs.
The last question I have for you before I let you speak about your Minnesota Vikings is this, and we're big sports guys. I mean, we grew up arguing about sports. Where do you stand on this push by these athletes for the voting? And I'll tell you where I stand. I just had a conversation. I just had Dan Garza on the show. Dan Garza, who's the executive director of the Libre Initiative, and he was in the Bush cabinet at the White House. And I said to him, I said, my issue with this is that I don't know how productive ultimately it is, because we're asking minorities, particularly blacks, to go out and vote. And while that in itself is a good thing, right? If most of these blacks that are being asked to now go out and vote and live in the same places where the states are already won, what type of an impact can it have? I mean, does it really matter if you get more blacks in Brooklyn or more blacks in Newark to go vote? I mean, at the end of the day, that's like trying to get the Mexicans in California to go vote. You're going to win those states. I mean, the idea is to try to get the swing states, but I don't know if from a population standpoint you can. How do you answer to that? Phil, did we lose you?
Oh, I'm sorry, Serge. No, you didn't lose me. I hit mute. That's why I kept talking over you and you weren't even letting me. I was yelling at you for what you were saying. The athletes, they're promoting voting, which is a great thing, because I think only 65% of the people vote in the last election. In other countries, it's 90-95%. So they're promoting voting. And it's not only blacks who listen to athletes or follow athletes. Listen, my son, again, who is going to be politically astute because of his father, but his friends, in suburban Essex County, if LeBron James says go vote, they're gonna be motivated, or maybe that'll encourage them to get involved in the process. So I think everyone, from actors to teachers to athletes, everyone should be promoting everyone to vote. I mean, that's the basis of our democracy. When you can win an election with all, if 65% of the people vote, that means you can get elected with 33% of the vote, which means 67% of the people didn't vote for you. It's not, it's not indicative. So as long as their message is vote and get involved and all that, it can't hurt. You know what I'm saying? But I have not seen it. The majority of athletes or all that talk about what candidates, it's just about voting. When you see
but
stuff
we know
like
what's going on. But we know what's going on.
Right, absolutely.
Okay.
But you look at the NBA and they reached out to Essex County because they wanted to make they want to do something. So they reached out to us. They wanted to make the Prudential Center. They want to have voting in the Prudential Center. So it's great. So they do a press release. All right, anyone can go vote at the Prudential Center. You go there, register to vote. We're like, no, that's not the law. You can't just show up and vote and register. So they're being aggressive and they want to do stuff, but they really don't know the process. And they made some mistakes along the way, and they want to move some polling sites to the Prudential Center so they could say, hey, listen, we're doing something. We're the NBA and the NHL and all that. But it's, if you're so used to voting on a Broad Street at 1060 Broad Street, and now they move your polling site to the arena, it really is going to lower it could potentially lower voter turnout. But again, they're just trying to do stuff. And again, listen, it's the turmoil in our country this summer, everything that happened, the Black Lives Matter movement, and not necessarily the organization, but all that stuff. I mean, listen, people feel empowered. People feel that they want to do something. They understand they want to be more than just an athlete. So I give them credit for at least trying to do something, Sergio. It's better than standing on the sidelines complaining.
Talk to me about your Minnesota Vikings. This is your time to shine here, okay? Your team is 1-3. Now, look, here's what I see. Now, you watch every snap. I watch 65% of the snaps, I would say, fast forwarding through the game so that I could, prepare myself to do the show. Here's what I see.
Justin Jefferson is the real deal.
Well,
he's going to be great.
Well, we're going to get to that one. Here's what I see. Dalvin Cook is a monster.
Correct.
You have to.
You don't need a monster at running back, though.
Correct. That's an issue, but you have him and you're using him and he's doing the job. You have to limit the quarterback to 25 throws. He threw the ball 22 times this week. That was good.
Quarterback is great. We scored 30 points 3 games in a row. Unfortunately,
yeah, but
Mike Zimmer, who I love, his defense has not played. He lost a lot of guys. He's got a few injuries. They signed Pierce, the defensive lineman who opted out for COVID. I think that's made a huge difference on the team. It's tough. It's tough. I don't know, but I mean, can the Cowboys stop something?
No.
I mean,
no, but let me tell you. Let me tell you.
Stop the defense.
No. Listen, let me tell you what the problem with the Cowboys is. The Cowboys have a quarterback who's a fantasy football player. Every game, he takes 2 quarters off. Every game, we go into the fourth quarter down a bunch of points. Now, look, I'm not saying the defense is good by any means, obviously, but the game is played different at 21-21 than if you're going 3 and out for 6-7 possessions in a row, and now the defense has to be on the field. So I just feel like they would be better if the stats that are being put up and the points that are being put up were spread out over 4 quarters. Now, the one advantage I think the Cowboys have over your Vikings is the schedule. I think the fact that they play in that schedule. The fact that they have that division where they're going to play the Giants, who are terrible. The Giants have 3 touchdowns this year, by the way. The Giants twice.
I think they're improving.
Stop.
I don't watch a lot of their snaps. I do think.
Come on, stop. They have a quarterback who turns the ball over like it's his business. And the thing is, he's got a nickname. They call him Danny Dimes. I call him Danny Pennies on my show. You know, that they have the team formerly known as the Redskins twice. They have the Giants twice. And the Eagles are terrible too. So they have a chance to get 5 wins just there. Where are the Vikings going to get 5 more wins?
No, listen, you play Seattle this week. In Seattle, you play Green Bay coming up. You still have to play Chicago and Detroit twice, and it's hard to go 4-0 against those 4 teams. And you're absolutely right. The schedule is very tough. But let me hear it, Serge. 4 weeks into the NFL season, give me your early Super Bowl. Who do you I'm not holding
Kansas City and Green Bay. Green Bay's a monster right now.
I know.
Aaron Rodgers is so good.
It bothers me.
Phil, Aaron Rodgers. I know it bothers you. Phil, Aaron Rodgers basically played last night with pedestrian offensive talent around him at receiver. Now, he threw the ball a lot to the backs, too, in the tight end. But, I mean, it didn't matter. I mean, the guy's he's incredible.
I might rather root for Trump than Green Bay. How about that?
Phil, you're the best, man. Thank you for joining me. Phil Alagia.
Whenever you want me on.
Phil Alagia.
I'm ready.
No, thank you. Phil Alagia, the Chief of Staff of Essex County, New Jersey. Thank you for listening to the Sergio Rodriguez Show.